Part 42. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 411. Nan 11 is pregnant now, so she needs to keep a happy mood and is not suitable to listen to too many sad stories. So Rongyu does not plan to let her know too much for the time being. Although it has been a long time since the incident, those memories have been engraved into her heart and bones, and each cut is a painful scar. Every time she thinks of it, it makes people feel suffocated. Fortunately, she has achieved her wish now. She has used gentleness to soothe all the loneliness and pain in her memory, letting the obsession fade away little by little, and the pain is slowly healed. She no longer can't sleep all night, no longer hesitates and worries about gains and losses. She used gentleness and tolerance to build a warm house for him. Rongyu stayed in this warm house and didn't want to come out. He just wanted to enjoy a peaceful life with her for generations. As for those long gone past, Rongyu closed his eyes slightly, and the past appeared in his mind again. He found that he had not thought about it for a long time. It seemed that he had really let it go and could face the pain and regrets of the past calmly. Now he is just Rongyu, the regent of the great Zhou dynasty, the husband of Nan 11, and the husband of the Empress Dongling, and no longer the Rong Huijin who loved but could not get. She is not Empress Jinghua either. If they did not understand love in the past, and stumbled and bruised in the mountains and rivers of power and responsibility, then now they have obviously become mature and strong, and have completed the transformation. After some time, he can recall the past more calmly, and their child will be born. At that time, he can tell her the story between Empress Jinghua and Rong Huijin bit by bit, just like telling other people's stories. No concealment, no more sadness, completely get rid of the shackles of obsession, and just start the life belonging to Rongyu and Nan 11 peacefully. On the 16th day of the 12th lunar month, the Jingwang mansion was overjoyed. The palace was decorated with colorful lights and a festive atmosphere. The maids and servants were busy running around, and it was very lively. The wedding of Prince Ji followed the royal etiquette. The Ministry of Rites prepared 3 books and performed 6 ceremonies according to the classics. The betrothal gifts from Prince Jing's mansion were sent to the Chu mansion on the auspicious day of the betrothal. The gifts were continuous and grand, representing the highest standard of attention that Prince Ji paid to his beloved woman. The rewards from the palace were also generous. The female officials were ordered to deliver them and announced one by one to the gift list. Her Majesty the Queen rewarded 500 taels of gold, 5,000 taels of silver, a pair of purple ivory and black crystal beads, a pair of lotus leaf and ruyi pattern gold bracelets, a pair of gold-threaded mandarin ducks, a longevity lock with abundant surpluses every year, a longevity tent with 100 children, a pair of jade ruyi, and a colorful mandarin duck glass screen. Prince Jing and his wife led the whole mansion to thank the emperor respectfully. The generous reward represents the queen's favor to the Jingwang mansion, represents the strong alliance between the Jingwang mansion and the Chu family is the queen's grace and recognition, and also represents the status of the new couple Qi Shizi and Chu Hongii as new nobles and favorites in front of the queen. The auspicious time has arrived, and the bells and drums are noisy. The groom, who is dressed in wedding clothes and looks extremely handsome, rolls down from the tall horse and walks to the front of the wedding sedan. With a clear joyful look in his eyes, he calms down and reaches out to open the sedan curtain, and sees the girl sitting in the sedan with a bright and charming face. The phoenix crown and bridal robe make her face look like a flower, bright and beautiful, and a bright red flower on her forehead fades the usual heroic spirit, adding a bit of softness and beauty. Xian Yuanqi was lost in thought for a moment. It was not until the female official reminded him softly that he suddenly came back to his senses, with a happy smile on his lips. His slender jade-like hand reached into the sedan chair and helped his long-cherished bride step out of the wedding sedan chair. Chu Hongii lowered her eyes and her gaze fell on his hands. Memories appeared before her like fleeting glimpses. These hens had taught her martial arts, military tactics, and told her that women could also be generals. They had taken her to gallop on the endless grassland and embrace the vast mountains and rivers. They had also stroked her eyebrows and eyes under the flowers and the moon, and gently expressed his tolerance and love. Now, this hand holds her hand, and they will become husband and wife today and grow old together. The lips stained with rouge were tender, and joy spread over the corners of the lips, turning into a smile on the face and a faint blush. Chu Hong'ai raised her eyes and stared at the stunning appearance of her lover. They looked into each other's eyes and clearly felt the deep affection and cherishment in each other's eyes. Xian Yuanqi held her hand and led her into the palace, walked through the long red carpet sprinkled with gold phoenixes and jade brocade, and went straight to the main hall decorated with grand and festive atmosphere. Prince Jing and the princess sat in the main seat, looking at the newlyweds with satisfaction, their faces full of smiles and blessings. The ceremonial officer sang, "First bow to heaven and earth. First bow to heaven and earth, raise the case to eyebrows. Second bow to parents. Shayu is melodious, and the zither and harp sound harmoniously. Husband and wife bow to each other. Life and death, I will be with you. Holding your hand, I will grow old with you. Send her to the bridal chamber." Xian Yuanqi raised the corner of his lips slightly, looked at the treasure in his heart tenderly, retracted the red silk slightly, held her hand and walked to the bridal chamber together. From today on, she will be his legitimate wife, the treasure he cherishes in his palm for his whole life, and the only one whose name is listed with him in the genealogy. She is also the only one who can be buried with him 100 years later. The dragon and phoenix flowers and candles are shining brightly, and the room is full of light and color. In the bridal chamber, the maids came forward with golden plates, happily saying auspicious words, and scattered red dates, peanuts, longans, lotus seeds, peanuts, and 5-color flowers and fruits into the tent, and the head and foot of the bed were full of joy. After setting up the bed, the bride smiled and respectfully invited the bride and groom to sit on the edge of the bed, tied the corners of their clothes tightly, and carefully took a lock of hair from each of them and tied it into a wishful knot. The maid brought a golden plate and presented 2 ruyi wine cups filled with fine wine to the front. They were married and drank the wedding wine together. Xian Yuanqi smiled and reached out to take a pair of jade ruyi cups and handed one to Chu Hong'ai. With his arms entwined, his eyes reflected the face of a woman with a golden hairpin and a phoenix crown, like autumn water with waves, swaying with tenderness and ripples. The sparkling eyes contained endless tenderness and joy. The pupils under the long eyelashes looked at him quietly, without any of the domineering in the past, only quiet, light, and hazy feelings like moonlight. Xian Yuanqi's heart was slightly moved, staring at her rosy lips, and he couldn't help wanting to kiss her and eat the rouge on her red lips bit by bit, but because the process was not over yet, he had to suppress the impulse temporarily. The mellow wine was in his mouth, with a hint of clear sweetness. The bridesmaid took out the knot made of their hair and smiled and congratulated, "Congratulations to the prince and the lady on their marriage, may they live happily ever after." The maids all smiled and congratulated, "Congratulations to the prince and the lady." Putting the wine cup back on the golden plate, Xian Yuanqi looked at his beloved wife tenderly, "Are you tired?" Chu Hong'ai was about to shake her head when she heard a voice from outside, "Why are you so slow, Prince Chi? Are you reluctant to leave your bride? Hurry up. The guests are waiting." Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbs feed -01, container, tabula below article feed, placement, below article feed, target. Type, mix. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 412. Xian Yuanqi paused slightly and turned his head towards the door in displeasure. "Your Majesty, please go and entertain the guests first." 11 Niang smiled, "The servants are here to take care of you. I won't make Madam tired." Chu Hongyi pursed her lips slightly, and a rare blush covered her brows and eyes. Go. Xian Yuanqi squeezed her hand. Wait until I come back. Chu Hongyi hummed and whispered, drink less. Xian Yuanqi didn't care how many maids were still in the room. He held her face in his hands, his eyes lingering on her bright eyebrows, and kissed her forehead reluctantly. As you command, madam. The maids lowered their heads shyly. Oh. The prince is really happy with his wife. 11 Niang said with a smile, I will obey her words and not let go for a moment, which is enviable. The maids laughed along, and the new room was full of joy. Xian Yuanqi smiled, turned around and walked out. Madam, you are so beautiful. 11 Niang couldn't help but look at her again and again, with a smile on her face. No wonder the prince is reluctant to leave her. He can't wait to have a wedding night soon. Chu Hongyi has never been a person who likes to joke, but today is a special day, and the jokes from others are blessings. She is also happy to hear them, and her heart is filled with silent sweetness. Looking down at his hand, the warm feeling of being held seemed to be lingering, making people greedy. Getting married to the one you love is a joyful thing for anyone, even someone as cold as Chu Hongyi is no exception. She was not the only one who was reluctant to let go. Xian Yuanqi regretted it as soon as he walked out the door. He was about to turn around and go back to say a few words when he suddenly heard a lazy voice, is the groom reluctant to let go of my sister-in-law? Xian Yuanqi raised his eyes and saw Xiejin, dressed in a brocade robe, lazily leaning on the pillar, holding a glass of wine in his hand, his delicate and noble face full of jest, looking at him with a half-smile. Xian Yuanqi raised his eyebrows slightly, are you envious of me for marrying a lovely wife? Tiska hand stretched out from the side, held his shoulder and walked out. Ajin has 3,000 concubines in the backyard, and there are countless confidantes outside. They are all as beautiful as flowers, considerate and gentle, who would envy you? Xie Jindanfeng raised his eyes and squinted at Xian Yuanyao who was speaking. Yao Yao still understands me. Xian Yuan prayed, there are 3,000 weak waters, I will only take one scoop. Tisk, tisk, tisk. Chu Nanyi stood in the corridor, waving his folding fan and chuckled, he is indeed an infatuated man, but it is more appropriate to save the sentence for my little sister. Yuan Xieju, who is full of beauties all over the world, and the whole isn't it true that Prince Yao, who was hanging out in the military camp, said this. That's right, I should save this sentence for my sister-in-law at night. Xiejin smiled, with an obvious teasing on his face, after all, my sister-in-law is pregnant, and you will probably spend the night in the bridal chamber tonight. I'm blind for nothing. I have to cover myself with a quilt and just chat. I can't do anything. I might as well drink myself unconscious. Bullshit. Xian Yuanqi was annoyed, do you think I am you? What's wrong? Xiejin raised his eyebrows, is it possible that Prince Ji plans to start cultivating his moral character after getting married and become a Luziawai who is not a womanizer? Xian Yuanqi counterattacked, Master Xieju has been very proud of himself recently. Not to mention I have 3,000 concubines, and I just got a few beautiful boys. I don't know if my body can handle it. Hearing this, Xian Yuanyao remembered the young men in Xiejin's courtyard and couldn't help but joke, Ajin, those young men also look beautiful and fragrant. Does Yao Yao also want to be one in my backyard? Xiejin reached out and lifted Xian Yuanyao's chin, if Yao Yao obeys me, I will dismiss all the beauties in the backyard and focus on doting on Yao Yao from now on. Xian Yuanyao slapped his hand away, get out. That's enough for you too. There are occasions for flirting. Chu Nanyi said angrily, if the prince sees it, you will be punished by kneeling for 2 hours. Kneeling for 2 hours, Xian Yuanqi's face showed surprise, when did it happen? Why didn't I know? Speaking of this, I have an inseparable relationship with Prince Ji. Xiejin said calmly, I have just done you a big favor, so remember to be grateful, but don't imitate others and burn bridges. Xian Yuanqi was silent for a moment and raised his eyebrows slightly. What did you do for me? Xiejin said, the regent asked me to bring you a message. I wonder if you are interested in hearing it. Xian Yuanqi looked slightly calm and said calmly, tell me. In the future, please restrain yourself and stop acting so unscrupulously, Xiejin said calmly. After all, we are all people with families and families, so we have to pay attention to propriety. Xian Yuanqi pondered for a moment. Is this what the regent said? The first half of the sentence is said by the regent, and the second half is said by me. That's all. What else? Xiejin smiled lightly. That's why you said you owe me a favor. Remember to pay it back in the future. Xian Yuan prayed, do you want me to give you a red thread? The red line is no longer needed, Xiejin said in a calm tone. From now on, as long as Master Zhu gives you orders, you can always be there. Ajin, do you think that Prince Ji is your slave? Xian Yuanyao frowned. You're still here when you call me? Aren't you afraid that my sister-in-law will chop you with a sword? I'm not afraid, Xiejin chuckled casually. I hold her husband in my hands. Even if she is a general who governs the country, she must be obedient. Xian Yuanqi was in a good mood today and didn't care about him. Let's go and have a drink. Xian Yuanyao dragged him to the banquet and greeted him. Come on, the groom is here. I won't come back until I'm drunk today. The groom's face is full of youth and his heart is full of joy. The prince is getting married and he has married the toughest girl in Dongling. We must drink a few more cups today. Can you talk? What do you mean tough? She is a heroine. A moment of spring night is worth 1,000 gold. The groom must accompany us to drink until dawn tonight. Go to hell. The Jingwang mansion was noisy and joyful. Young men of the same age surrounded the groom, drinking and laughing. In the bridal chamber, the bride sat on the edge of the bed, and the bridesmaids and maids said happy words to entertain her. Inside and outside the house, there was laughter and joy. Sweetness seemed to be contagious, making everyone's face smile. However, on the same day, some people were happy and some complained. In the gloomy Wang mansion, several female doctors spent 3 days and used many precious medicinal materials to finally save the dying Fang Lanyi from the hands of death. Because she was a woman and her injuries were so secret, the doctors in the imperial hospital were not able to treat her, so they asked several female doctors around the Queen Mother to come and help. The female doctors were responsible for diagnosing and explaining the injuries, while the doctors in the imperial hospital were responsible for prescribing the right medicine. Bowl after bowl of decoction was boiled, but because she was unconscious, it was difficult to feed her medicine, so she drank less and wasted more, so she had to be fed continuously for 2 days. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 413. Everyone in the inner room was screened away, except for the medical ladies who gathered around the bed and carefully applied medicine to Fang Lanyi, who was extremely weak. The scene in front of me can only be described as horrific. But no matter how shocked the medical ladies were in their hearts, they could not show it on the surface. They tried their best to diagnose and treat her injuries without daring to say a word. The status of a medical woman is humble. In the final analysis, she is only a little higher than a palace maid. She has some weight because she has served the queen and concubines all year round. However, this weight is not worth mentioning in front of the nobles. If she says the wrong thing, she will be instantly punished, causing death. Fortunately, Miss Fang finally woke up, and the imperial doctor and the medical ladies breathed a sigh of relief at the same time. After 3 days of trembling with fear, they finally felt relieved. In the evening, it is getting dark. Fang Lanyi opened her eyes and stared at the unfamiliar curtain in her sight. Her thoughts were still blurry and blank. She was in a state of confusion, making it difficult for her to tell whether she was awake or in a nightmare. However, the pain everywhere in her body screamed crazily, quickly awakening the night that was a nightmare for her. Fang Lanyi's face turned pale, and her whole body slowly shrank into a ball. She suddenly let out a shrill scream and clenched the quilt tightly. Help! Help! Help me! No, don't come here, don't come here. The doctor's face changed suddenly, and she quickly stretched out her hand to comfort her. Miss Fang, calm down. No. Don't come here. No, please. It hurts, it hurts. An overwhelming pain swept over me. She was completely stunned, her clothes were torn, she was scared and panicked, and she kept begging for mercy, screaming, and calling for help. But no one came to save her. Fang Lanyi closed her eyes. In front of her eyes was a dark nightmare. Countless scenes that frightened her lingered in her mind. The demon-like man waved his whip and slaps, treating her as a toy for venting. She curled up. The whole person shrank into a ball due to fear and instinct, but still could not stop the violence that person inflicted on her. No, don't. She said tremblingly, don't come over, don't hit me, please, I'm not. Miss Fang, don't be afraid, Miss Fang. The three medical women kept comforting her, no one will hurt you, we are here to save you. Really, no one will hurt you again. Miss Fang, calm down. Fang Lanyi curled up and hugged her body as if to escape. The young and gentle soothing voices of several women echoed in her ears. Her body was stiff and her face was pale. She seemed to be sluggish and didn't respond for a long time, but her body couldn't control it all the time. The place trembles. However, the medical ladies took the trouble and kept whispering in her ears, telling her not to be afraid. The nightmare was over and no one would hurt her anymore. After an unknown amount of time, Fang Lanyi's body was finally trembling visibly. He calmed down, no longer trembling so violently, and his emotions finally calmed down little by little. He slowly raised his head. There was no blood on his pale face, and the bruises and cracks at the corners of his mouth and eyes looked particularly miserable. At this time, she was like a frightened cat, looking at the several medical women standing in front of the bed with fear and anxiety. Miss Fang, Dr. Bai said softly, I am the medical lady next to the Queen Mother. I am here to treat your injury at the Queen Mother's order. You are seriously injured, but it is not serious for the time being. You need to take good care of your emotions next. You can't get too excited, and you can't. Where am I? Fang Lanyi asked. After she calmed down, her voice was abnormally calm. What is this place? I was just in a coma for 2 days and 3 nights, and my voice was so broken and hoarse that it sounded like a broken gong. Several medical ladies looked at each other, and Dr. Bai said cautiously, the girl is in Prince Wei's mansion now. Prince Wei's mansion? Fang Lanyi's body became cold, as if she had fallen into an ice cellar. The things that happened on that nightmarish night came to her mind bit by bit, like the abyss of hell that had completely destroyed her. Even though she had seen the light now, the abyss was still there, and she was still in hell. Fang Lanyi bit her lip. She couldn't believe it, and she didn't want to believe it. Why did such a thing happen to her? Why? Why? Fang Lanyi bit her lip and drew blood, and there was crazy hatred in her eyes. However, her weak and broken body at this time did not even have the strength to support her from getting up. She fell weakly on the bed like a rag doll. The resentment and unwillingness in my heart can only be swallowed alone in my stomach. Miss Fang Dr. Chen came over with a glass of warm water. Drink some water to moisten your throat first. You are weak now. Don't think too much and have a good rest. Fang Lanyi lay motionless on the bed, her voice dead and hollow. What day is today? The 16th day of the 12th lunar month. The 16th day of the 12th lunar month. Fang Lanyi's mind was a little slow and she thought haphazardly for a long time before suddenly being shocked. Xian Yuan Qi and Chu Hong I's big day. Yes, Dr. Bai nodded, today is a happy day for Prince Qi. Fang Lanyi bit her gums, her pale fingers tightly clenching the quilt under her body, and the jealousy in her heart grew like a vine. Enduring the severe pain and discomfort all over her body, she weakly said, "Who is 11 Niang?" 11 Niang, Dr. Bai shook his head hesitantly, "I'm not sure, we didn't ask. The eldest son of Prince Jing's palace got married." What did Miss Fang ask 11 Niang to do? Dr. Chen, who was holding the water, handed it to Dr. Bai and whispered, "I'll go and inform the princess." Dr. Bai nodded. The news that Miss Fang had woken up should indeed be reported to the Princess of Wei. If she had any mood problems or other symptoms later, the doctors would not be able to make the decision. But for the couple of the Prince of Wei, Fang Lanyi's awakening was not something to be happy about. When they thought that their son was still in the prison of the Ministry of Justice and Fang Lanyi had been granted marriage and became the daughter-in-law of the Prince of Wei's mansion, they felt as if they had eaten a fly. The more they thought about it, the more annoyed they became. The Prince of Jing's mansion married a general who guarded the country, but the Prince of Wei's mansion had to accept a broken flower. The mood of the Prince of Wei can be imagined. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 414. But at the moment, they don't have any extra thoughts on Fang Lanyi. The King of Wei tries every way to find someone to ask for help every day, hoping to get Xian Yuanyan out of the prison of the Ministry of Justice. Even the Duke of Zhenqiu has to help him with this. If Xian Yuanyan gets into trouble, Fang Lanyi will not only be a widow, but she may even be known as a husband killer. The most important thing is that if Xian Yuanyan really gets into trouble, the Duke of Zhenqiu and the King of Wei will really turn against each other. After the new emperor ascended the throne, the Duke of Zhenqiu and the King of Wei were already on the same boat, and the relationship was complicated and far-reaching. If even their own people were alienated, it would be easier for the regent to deal with them. So even if the Duke of Zhenqiu hated Xian Yuanyan in private, he had to choose to continue to maintain a superficial peace and friendship, and forced himself to swallow his anger. Therefore, unlike the joyous atmosphere in Prince Jing's mansion these days, the Duke of Zhenqiu and Prince Wei's mansions have been shrouded in a haze these 2 days. The owners of the two mansions are gloomy, angry, irritable, and humbly going between the mansions of the major dignitaries, trying to get the old princes and the ministers who have a say in the court to say a few words in front of the regent. However, this incident just happened a few days ago, and it is still at the forefront of the storm. Even the truth of the hidden truth has not been found out. Who dares to speak to the regent about this? Therefore, the temper of the Prince of Wei and his wife became more and more irritable, and they didn't react much when they heard the news that Fang Lanyi woke up. She woke up, just let the servants take good care of her. "Why did you tell me?" Princess Wei said angrily, "don't you know I'm upset?" Chen Yunu, who came with the maid, heard this and couldn't help but be silent for a moment, and then said respectfully, "Miss Fang is very weak and her mental state is not very good dash." "Isn't she alive?" Princess Wei frowned coldly. Dr. Chen choked, "Yes, her life is no longer in danger, but..." "That's enough." Princess Wei waved her hand and ordered impatiently, "Madam Yan, pick 2 people to go to Fang Lanyi's place and take good care of her in the next 2 days. See if she needs any medicine or food. Listen to the doctor. If Miss Fang makes any request, try to satisfy her." "Yes." Madam Yan took the order and was about to leave with Dr. Chen, but Princess Wei suddenly said, "Wait." The two turned around and looked at Princess Wei. "Come here." Princess Wei looked at Dr. Chen and spoke lightly. Although Chen Yinu was puzzled, she still stepped over the threshold and half knelt and said, "What do you want, Princess?" Princess Wei's expression was not good, but she had to ask, "How is Miss Fang? Is she injured?" Dr. Chen's tone was relatively conservative, She needs to take good care of herself for a while. Can she still have children? Dr. Chen was stunned, then she understood what she meant, and hesitated for a moment. It should be fine, Miss Fang's injuries are quite serious, but most of them are external injuries. I know, Princess Wei said gloomily, go and get busy. Yes. The sky gradually darkened, and Xian Yuanqi, who had been drunk, suggested going back to the room. You guys, drink to your heart's content, this prince can't hold his liquor. That's enough. Xian Yuanyao snatched the wine cup from his hand and teased him mercilessly. Aren't you just in a hurry to go back to the bridal chamber to see your sister-in-law? Get out of here quickly, don't keep your sister-in-law waiting for too long. It's not time yet, why are you in such a hurry? Su Hanyu walked away with the wine cup in his hand. He came over with a smile on his face. Isn't this what marriage is all about? Why is Prince Ji so anxious? That's right, a young man from the clan next to him followed suit. On the wedding night, it is the rule for the bride to sit in the bridal chamber and wait for her husband. Every woman goes through this. Could it be that Prince Ji feels sorry for her? This is not okay. A man who stands tall and upright cannot let a woman climb over his head and bully others. That's right, another young noble echoed. A married woman should obey her husband, even if even a general who guards the country has to follow the rules of her husband's family, right? Su Hanyu took Xian Yuanqi's wine cup, signaled the maid to pour wine, and then forced it into his hand. Come, let's have another drink together. Chu Nanyi Xiejin sat at the table, holding a wine cup, and turned his eyes casually. Do you think the general who guards the country should marry and obey her husband, strictly observe the 3 obediences and 4 virtues from now on, stay at home, and be a good wife and mother who respects her husband? No matter where the 9th master of the Xie family is, he is destined to be the focus of everyone's attention. As soon as he said this, the young masters who were making a fuss instantly quieted down, and their eyes turned to his face at the same time, with a little suspicion and inquiry on their expressions, and they couldn't help but wonder, is this a blatant provocation? They obviously didn't mean that. Although it is true that men are superior to women, it is not realistic to stay at home. After all, Chu Hongii is a female general with military power. I think Prince Ji can ask Her Majesty the Queen another day. Chu Nanyi waved her fan, her tone leisurely and calm. Her Majesty the Queen and the Regent should give you the best answer. Xian Yuanyao was shocked. He is indeed a ruthless person. Dare to mention that men are superior to women and women should obey their husbands in front of Her Majesty the Queen and the Regent? That is definitely bold enough. Today, Prince Ji is getting married. He is very happy. What is he talking about? Su Hanyu smiled. General Chu is a heroine. The Jingwang mansion has to rely on her to earn military merits. They can't even praise her. How can they suppress her? Xian Yuanqi drank the wine in his hand, and looked at the people in front of him with a smile. My little ancestor is indeed a person who has to be praised by the Jingwang mansion. What's the point of earning military merits? In the future, if she is favored by Her Majesty, she will have to rely on her for wealth and honor. Even I, the husband, have to rely on her for support. Who else can I support if not her? Su Hanyu paused. The other clan members listened to Xian Yuanqi's words, and their expressions were a little subtle for a while. They didn't expect that Prince Ji was so self-righteous in eating soft rice. However, Xian Yuanqi's words reminded them of a fact. Chu Hongii is the only female general in the court so far, and the only female minister in front of Her Majesty. This only occupies a weight that cannot be ignored. They are now encouraging Prince Ji to lay down the status that the husband should have. What if Chu Hongii gets powerful in the future? Will they suffer? Come on, those who don't want to get drunk today, this prince will drink with you. Xian Yuanyao took the wine cup. Whoever lies down first is a grandson. Xiejin raised his eyebrows. Prince Yao has a good alcohol tolerance. Nonsense, Xian Yuanyao said indifferently. If a military general can't drink, he is still called a military general. Xiejin's lips curled slightly, who stipulated that a military general must have a good alcohol tolerance. After Xian Yuanyao finished talking to him, he realized that Xiejin called him Prince Yao, not the disgusting Yao Yao, and secretly thought that he was sensible and knew not to call him that in front of so many people. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 415. There were many tables and people in the front hall. Especially the young upstarts who loved to be lively. There were dozens of royal children of the same generation as Xian Yuanqi, some were close, some were distant, some were familiar. However, there were not many who dared to openly come forward to make a scene, because Xian Yuanqi was not in the imperial capital for many years before. Even if he came back for a few months at the end of the year, he would mostly stay with Chu Hongii for a while and have some contact with a few close relatives. Even if the more distant ones were from the same clan, many of them could not even call their names. Moreover, with the ninth master of the Xie family here today, others dared not come forward to make trouble, especially after seeing Su Hanyu and several relatives being given some face in public or in private. The young masters were much more tactful and obedient. So after Xiejin and others stabilized the situation, Xian Yuanqi was able to get away quickly and return to the bridal chamber smoothly. Chu Hongii was bored staying in the room alone. Because Princess Jing had told them early on that the maids knew that the young lady was pregnant, they didn't dare to let her get tired or hungry, so they took off the phoenix crown on her head early, redressed her, and served Chu Hongii a bowl of rock sugar bird's nest porridge. After eating, Chu Hongii sat alone in front of the bed and read a book, still a military book. The bridesmaid and the maids looked at her with a look of hesitation. In fact, they wanted to chat with her to relieve her boredom, but the young lady didn't seem to like talking, and reading a military book on the wedding night. The bridesmaid had never seen a bride like this, but she had heard of General Chu's name, so she understood it in her heart. My lord, seeing Xian Yuanqi coming in, the bridesmaid and the maid saluted together. Chu Hongii, who was sitting in front of the bed, raised her head. Go down first. Xian Yuanqi had a smile on his lips. He was in a good mood and his tone sounded particularly gentle. Prepare some hot food. Yes. The maids withdrew. Xian Yuanqi walked to the bedside and looked down at his beautiful wife. You didn't forget to read military books on the wedding night. You are indeed a general who protects the country. It's boring to sit here, so I'll kill some time. Chu Hongii put the book away. Did you drink? It's inevitable to drink a little. Xian Yuanqi kissed her forehead. Are you hungry? Let's eat something first. I just had a bowl of bird's nest porridge. Chu Hongii said, and suddenly turned her head to look at him. My wife, Xian Yuanqi raised his eyebrows. You suddenly found that my husband is as beautiful as a flower, which makes you irresistible. Chu Hongii looked at him silently for a long time, and then slowly nodded, a flower of the royal family. Xian Yuanqi paused, and then he was a little amused. A flower of the royal family? She thought of it. How is it going? Chu Hongii asked. A lot of people are coming. Prince Jing's mansion is getting married to the Chu family. All those who should come have come, and many who shouldn't have come have also come. Xian Yuanqi said, with Xiejin, Xian Yuanyao and your second brother supporting the scene, we don't have to worry. Chu Hongii hummed and said nothing more. The dragon and phoenix candles in the bridal chamber were shining brightly, making the bridal chamber full of light and color. Xian Yuanqi stared at the girl sitting on the edge of the bed, and joy spread from the bottom of his heart little by little. Hongii. Chu Hongii was silent for a moment, and responded in a low voice, yes. Hongii. Xian Yuanqi stretched out his arms and held her in his arms. We are husband and wife. Chu Hongii was also happy in her heart, and her eyebrows softened unconsciously. Yes, husband and wife. The door was pushed open, and several maids came in with food. Xian Yuanqi walked to the table holding Chu Hongii's hand and sat down. Two maids put some light porridge, buns, and snacks on the table. The other two walked to the bed and carefully picked up all the flowers and fruits on the wedding bed to avoid bumping into the two masters when they went to bed at night. The bridal chamber was warm and quiet, and the atmosphere in the front hall was lively. It's rare to have so many people here today. It's meaningless to just drink. Xiejin glanced at him. I'm setting up a bet. Who's interested in joining in the fun? Chu Nanyi smiled faintly. What bet? Who dares not to give face to Master Ju? Seeing this, the other young masters asked one after another, I wonder what Master Ju is going to bet on. Yes, it's rare for so many people to gather together today. How can there be no atmosphere? We naturally have to follow the bet set by Master Ju. I didn't bring much silver today, so I'll bet on 500 taels. I'll bet on 500 taels too. I'm short of money recently, so I'll bet on 200 taels. The young masters joined in one after another. The seats around Xiejin were soon filled with people. Xieju's appeal is really strong. Everyone has to give him some face. Su Hanyu sat diagonally opposite Xiejin, holding a wine cup and smiling lightly. I wonder what you want to bet on. Xiejin had a fox-like smile on his lips, and said lightly, betting on the groom's physical strength tonight. Huh? Everyone was stunned. Xianyu Enyao was stunned, and the wine he just drank was choked out. Cough, cough, cough. Why is Prince Yao so careless? Xiejin turned his head and considerately handed him a snow-white handkerchief to wipe it. Are you not used to the wine of Prince Jing's mansion? Xianyu Enyao snatched the handkerchief. His handsome and elegant face was slightly red because of coughing, and the corners of his eyes were misty, and there was a little more radiance for no reason. Xiejin's mouth corners deepened, and he held his cheek, just looking at him quietly, with deep eyes. The king of Huainan returned to Huainan, but left Prince Yao alone in the imperial capital. Did he want the prince to fly high on his own? Su Hanyu smiled faintly. Or, is it because the queen ascended the throne as the new emperor, and the regent was worried that the king of Huainan would be able to gain power, so he left Prince Yao as a hostage? Hostage? Xianyu Enyao frowned slightly, and looked up at him slowly. Su Hanyu, you are worthy of your surname Su. Su Hanyu's smile froze. What do you mean? What do you mean? Xianyu Enyao raised his lips, with a bit of mockery in his smile. Your father has been eating gigolos for so many years. Has he devoted all his attention to pleasing his wife, and never taught you how to speak properly? Or, in fact, your parents have always raised you as a girl? Su Hanyu's face darkened. Xianyu Enyao, you are so presumptuous. The atmosphere suddenly condensed, and everyone present was silent for a while. Xianyu Enyao sneered, sowing discord is always the trick women are best at. You, a grown man, don't think about your business all day long. You keep nagging like a woman. Don't you worry about humiliating the Su family's reputation. Su Hanyu's expression was ashen and stiff. He had been humiliated by Xianyu Enyan at the flower viewing banquet in the palace before. This time he was defeated again. New and old hatreds came together, making him want to split Xianyu Enyao in half. Clenching his hands, he looked at Xianyu Enyao with cold eyes. Xianyu Enyao. Don't shout so loudly, Xianyu Enyao said in a light tone. Today is the wedding of Prince Ji. If the atmosphere is awkward, you will definitely be the one who is embarrassed. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 416. Su Hanyu had a gloomy face and stared at him with cold and angry eyes. Everyone did not expect that the atmosphere would suddenly become tense, and they were a little confused about what to do. They turned around and saw Chu Nanyi sitting on the side of the table, fanning leisurely, calm and calm. Calmly, as if completely unaffected by the atmosphere in front of him. Xiejin was holding the wine cup, with a faint smile on his lips. His charming phoenix eyes were slightly narrowed. He sipped the wine carelessly, and a deep and unpredictable color inadvertently flowed out from the corners of his eyes. The silent atmosphere lasted for a moment, and soon someone broke the silence. Han Yu is indeed not very good at talking. I hope Prince Yao will forgive me. A man spoke at the table, his voice was calm and low, with a well-educated demeanor. It cannot be denied that coming to Prince Chi's wedding banquet today is not only a blessing but also a rare opportunity to communicate with each other, so we should get along well. As he said that, he stood up, took the initiative to raise the wine cup, and said to Xianyuan Yao, Prince Yao is not in the imperial capital all the year round, so he may not be used to the way the son of the aristocratic family speaks. I apologize on behalf of Han Yu, and I hope Crown Prince Yao will bear with me. Xianyuan Yao frowned. Has he been away from the imperial capital all year round? Does this mean that he is not the same as the prince from the imperial family? Raising his head, he looked at the man who spoke expressionlessly. Although he has never been in contact with him, he can guess his identity at a glance. Sulanyu, the eldest son of the second wife of the Su family, is Suhanyu's eldest brother. Wearing a calm azure brocade robe, he is about 23 or 24 years old. His appearance looks similar to Suhanyu, so when they stand together, they look like brothers, but in terms of demeanor, they are more similar to Suhanyu. It's obviously much stronger. But it's normal. One studies hard and concentrates on his official career, while the other relies on a bit of good looks and show off to be his brother's stepping stone. Naturally, there will be some differences in magnanimity and ability. Xianyuan Yao felt confident and was about to speak. Young Master Su said these words very well. I like to hear them. Xiejin raised the corners of his lips and glanced lazily at Xianyuan Yao. Did you hear that, Prince Yao? It's obvious that you are not used to being a son of a powerful family in the imperial capital. The way you talk, you still have the nerve to be angry. Xianyuan Yao thought that this evildoer definitely had bad intentions, and said quietly, Master Zhu is right, I am not responsible for this matter. For some so-called young masters who can only show off their words, I should follow the rules of Huainan. After a pause, he said lukewarmly, although force cannot solve all the problems in the world, it can shut up those who should shut up, so as to avoid making noise. Suhanyu's expression changed again. Well, Prince Yao is right. Xiejinzhen smiled, his eyes dripping with charm that charmed all living beings, but I have to correct Mr. Su on one point. Sulanyu looked at him silently. Not all young masters from noble families speak in the same way as your younger brother. The Su family likes to raise men like girls. It does not mean that this is the case in other aristocratic families, such as me. Xiejin smiled lightly, I have always been disgusted by this person. If there are such people in my house who are gossips, they will usually cut off their tongues directly so that they can remember. However, second young Master Su is not from the Xie family, and I have no right to deal with it. So in order to avoid the noise, I also invited the Su family to second young master, please avoid me from now on. As soon as these words came out, the air in the table suddenly dropped. Everyone's hearts trembled. Is Mr. Xieju going to break up with the Su family directly? Is Mr. Xieju too arrogant when he says this? Sulanyu said with an indifferent expression, is it possible that my second brother can't go where you are? No, I'm not that overbearing. Xiejin shook his finger. In addition to the royal palace banquets, if there are any banquets between aristocratic families in the future, as long as the second son of the Su family attends, you can notify me in advance, and I will. If you don't go, won't you just avoid it? After the words fell, the faces of the two Su brothers froze. Did Xiejin openly declare that he was an enemy of the Su family in front of so many powerful men in the imperial capital? Master Zhu, a young clan master, smiled and tried to smooth things over. Second Master Su actually didn't say anything outrageous, and it wasn't directed at Master Zhu. Master Ju has a lot of people, so don't take it so seriously. Given Sieju's importance in the imperial capital, what he said today is tantamount to declaring hostility to the Su family. Although the Su family has a prominent family and is one of the four major families, the head of the Su family, Su Ce, is only a household official. Shangju, the power in the court cannot be compared with Xie Xiaofu. Moreover, although the major aristocratic families have different powers, they have a keen sense of smell, and the slightest disturbance can lead to many speculations and judgments. In recent days, although the legitimate son of the Xie family does not hold an official position yet, he has received 2 errands from the regent, not formal orders, but just casual instructions. This kind of news inevitably makes people wonder, does the Xie family's legitimate son already have the qualifications to be a favorite in front of the regent? Xie Jin is a person who is not easy to mess with, and Xie Chief Fu is an extremely protective father. If the regent favors him again, then offending Xie Jin will obviously mean that the future will not be so easy. Even as prominent as the Su family, I'm afraid they won't be able to compete head-on. And other young masters from aristocratic families are forced to make a choice. Wherever Xie Jin is in the future, Su Hanyu is destined not to be there. Wherever Su Hanyu is, Xie Jin cannot be seen. So they also need to make a choice: should they rely on Xie Jin, or choose to have a good relationship with the Su family? No matter who you are, this is not a good multiple-choice question. The atmosphere in the hall froze for a moment. Xie Jin was holding the wine cup nonchalantly, not paying attention to the mood of the crowd. His delicate and noble eyebrows and eyes looked no different from usual, but the chill in the corners of his eyebrows and eyes made people feel cold to the bone. Su Hanyu couldn't understand at all. He had only said a few words. How could he offend Xie Jin and make him not hesitate to completely tear his face with him in front of so many people? Alas, Xianyu Enyao sighed faintly, leaning against the back of the chair lazily, looking really depressed. It turns out that the climate and soil of Huainan nourish people. No wonder Prime Minister Xie said that I was not used to the climate and soil of the imperial capital. I finally believe what he said is true. If it weren't for the regent who insisted on keeping me to help him train his troops, how could I be willing to stay in this broken place and face some extremely hypocritical people all day long? The words fell slowly, easily breaking the suffocating silence. Xie Jin turned his head and looked at him lightly. The Su brothers frowned slightly, their expressions changed again and again, and they couldn't help but turn their heads to look at him. Others were even more surprised, helping the regent to train troops. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 417. The Prince Regent left Xianyu Enyao behind so that he could train his troops. In a corner where no one was paying attention, a young man spoke in a low voice. Do you think what he said is true? The queen has just ascended the throne. The situation is still unclear at the moment. Let's wait and see. Mo Suanwu sat against the wall, drinking wine expressionlessly, his eyebrows deep and unable to tell the emotions in his heart. Whether it is true or not, I will always tell you. In the future we'll know. If it's true, what will you do? The young man frowned. In the past, Chu Hong'ai robbed you of the general position that should have belonged to you. Now she finally got married and got pregnant. She thought it was an opportunity. Why did she get pregnant halfway? Kill Xianyu Enyao. Mo Suanwu said nothing. He looked across the crowd and landed on Xie Jin's elegant face under the light of the lights. There was a deep thought in his eyes. The Prince of Huainan has only been in Beijing for a few days, and the aloof and rebellious legitimate son of the Xie family has already become close to him. Is the relationship really good, or is it just a show-off to deceive others? Since the enthronement ceremony of Her Majesty the Queen, the regent has stayed in the palace for several days and has not even had time to entertain the envoys from South Vietnam and northern Xinjiang. Although it is because he was injured, is there no other reason? Leaving aside the excellent medical doctors in the imperial hospital, Chu Nanyi, the concubine of the Chu family, diagnoses and treats him every day. Is it because Chu Nanyi has better medical skills, or because Chu Nanyi is more trustworthy? In addition to Chu Nanyi, what roles did Xiejin and Xian Yuanyao play in the queen and regent? The legitimate son of a powerful minister who urgently needs to win over? Staying in the imperial capital in the name of training soldiers, but in fact, it was exactly what Su Hanyu said just now. In order to control the Huainan king who was far away at the border, Xian Yuanyao was left as a proton? The new emperor has just ascended the throne and the situation is unclear. All guesses and judgments are just guesses. Her Majesty the Queen is a delicate woman, but the regent has a heart as deep as the sea, aloof, indifferent, and elusive. No one knows what he is thinking in his heart or how many chips he holds in his hand. I don't even know who the new emperor will use, who he will win over, and who he will suppress after he ascends the throne. Who among the four major families will be at the top of the list, and who will gradually lose power until they are replaced. Until the situation becomes clear, the Mahist family can only wait and see what happens and remain on hold. The dispute between Xian Yuanyao and Su Hanyu finally became a little more subtle due to Xiejin's intervention. Although the princes present have not yet entered the court, and some of them will never enter the court in their lifetime, but living in the center of power of the imperial family, he has been immersed in the treacherous power tactics since he was a child. Even if they can't completely understand what someone's words mean, they can probably guess pretty well. Su Hanyu was not a fool, but he was too impulsive. He compared Xian Yuanyao to a proton, just to arouse Xian Yuanyao's suspicion and hostility towards the queen and the regent, and to arouse Xian Yuanyao's suspicion and hostility towards the queen and the regent, as well as to arouse Xian Yuanyao who had been punished with 40 military sticks in full view of the public. Dissatisfied. As for Xian Yuanyao's previous declaration of allegiance in the palace, in the eyes of the powerful princes, it might just be a cover-up for self-protection. No matter what the facts are, the young masters of the aristocratic families will have more or less conjectures in their hearts. The father and son of Prince Huainan went to Beijing together, and the father went back, but left his son in the imperial capital. In the eyes of many people, he had just taken charge of the capital. The powerful regent was worried about King Huainan, so he kept his son. Su Hanyu's words were actually what others were thinking, but he dared to say it, while others kept their thoughts deep in their hearts and did not reveal anything. As for Xiejin, the legitimate son of the Xie family has always had no rules to follow in his actions. Everything he does depends on his mood. At this time, he can openly antagonize the Su family in order to protect Xian Yuanyao. In the future, he may also turn against Xian Yuanyao over trivial matters. The queen has not shown her face since she ascended the throne. Who can really see clearly what is true and what is false now? It's brightly lit at night. The hall is full of fragrance and warm, and the Suani gilt incense burner on the table emits curls of green smoke, creating a peaceful atmosphere that makes people feel at ease. The woman's voice also seemed particularly calm and peaceful. Xiejin had a dispute with the Su brothers at Prince Ji's wedding banquet. Yes. Nan 11 brought the freshly cooked soup to Rong Yu, then turned to look at Yin Huang. Why? Yin Shuang's tone was respectful but indifferent. Su Hanyu provoked the Prince of Huainan in public. Nan 11 was slightly stunned. Because Su Hanyu provoked Xian Yuanyao in public, Xiejin had a quarrel with the Su brothers. At first glance, it seems that something is not quite right. But Nan 11 didn't think much about it. Although Xiejin and Xian Yuanyao have known each other for a short time, they are informal and have similar temperaments. They are both Rong Yu's confidants, so it is normal for them to protect each other. What's more, the friendship between men is simple. As long as their temperaments are compatible, the length of time they have known each other is not important. Some people still can't get along after knowing each other for decades. Nan 11 thought about how Xiejin and Xian Yuanyao dared to joke in front of Rong Yu, and could not help but shake their heads and laugh. Is there a big fuss? After all, It was Prince Chi's wedding. If the scene was too ugly, Prince Jing and his wife would probably not be happy. No, Yinchuang shook his head. Master Xie just said that he will not appear wherever the second son of the Su family is in the future. Nan 11 raised her eyebrows. Isn't this a big deal? Well, at least he didn't break anything at the wedding banquet in Prince Jing's mansion, so it really wasn't a big deal. However, such an announcement sounded childish and willful, but it undoubtedly sent a thunderbolt among the princes of the imperial capital's family, enough to make everyone. Most of the young men were frightened. If Xiejin is serious, then they will be forced to weigh the pros and cons again and again to make a wise choice. If they want to hold the big tree of Xie family, they must draw a clear line with Su family. Otherwise, they will stand on the opposite side of Xie family. This move is actually quite cruel. It directly forced the Su family into an embarrassing situation. But if it was just because of a little quarrel, it doesn't seem to be justified. Nan 11 pondered for a moment. Why did Su Hanyu and Xianyu Enyao have a dispute? Su Hanyu said that the Prince of Huainan was a hostage left by the master. Hostage? Nan 11 raised her eyebrows. That's it? Sure enough, there are people with bad mouths everywhere, regardless of gender. I know, you go down. Yes. Rong Yu sat on the brocade couch and drank medicine, leaning sideways. After drinking the medicine, he put the empty bowl aside. There was no special emotion on his noble face. Only when Nan 11 walked over, he naturally reached out and held her in his arms, buried his head and smelled the fragrance between her hair. Be careful of getting hurt. Nan 11 sat on his lap and reached out to get a soft cushion and put it behind him. Don't bump into it. It doesn't hurt, Rong Yu said in a low voice. The wound has healed, don't worry. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 418. Scarring does not mean it will be cured. Nan 11 frowned. You don't care about your body so much. Are you deliberately trying to make me feel bad? I am wronged. Rong Yu chuckled. Your Majesty is aware of this. Nan 11 was silent for a moment. I haven't been to court since I ascended the throne. The dignitaries and ministers in the imperial capital can't help but speculate. Let them go, Rong Yu said calmly. Let's see who messes up first. Nan 11 nodded and said nothing more. Judging from his tone, you can tell that he has already made plans in his mind. In the midst of strategizing, victory can be achieved thousands of miles away. In terms of political power, he is a 1,000-year-old fox, and she is an ignorant child. She doesn't have to worry about it at all. But thinking of Xiejin's unruly temper, Nan 11 frowned. Su Hanyu is really not a smart person. If such a brain really enters the harem, Su consort won't worry that he will ruin the Su family. Xianyu and Qi was getting married, and there were many nobles and nobles from the imperial capital. He actually openly speculated on the holy will and bluntly said that Xianyu Enyao was left in the imperial capital as a hostage. Even though the empress and the regent had just entered the Dajhan palace, their foundations were still shallow. As a wise person, people should not take the initiative to provide such a means of seeking death. If Prince Consort Su and his wife really cultivated him to become an imperial husband, why wouldn't they teach him speaking skills? Su Hanyu's temperament is like his mother. Rong Yu raised his head and stroked Nan 11's hair. It's hard to change a natural temperament. Nan 11 was silent for a moment and nodded. I roughly understood what he meant. What is in one's bones is innate, and it is indeed not easy to change unless something huge changes one's destiny in life. If Su Hanyu's temperament is like her mother's, then it is obviously a kind of innate superficiality, narrow-mindedness, and self-righteousness. At least Rong Yu's words were not meant to be complimentary. Moreover, there is indeed nothing worthy of praise in Su Hanyu's performance. Men have always been superior to women in dongling. After all, the queen is in the minority. Prince Consort Su and his wife have never seen how the emperor's husband intrigues and plays with power, So they may think it is no different from the intrigues of the concubines in the harem, Nan 11 said with a faint smile. Since the Su family wants Suhanyu to enter the palace, they must have taught him some ways to survive in the harem. However, if they are just taught according to the standards of ordinary concubines, I don't wonder why he is so stupid. After all, men and women are inherently different. Applying the methods of harem concubines to men will not only appear nondescript and make people laugh, but it is also a sign of seeking death. In the harem, one wrong step would lead to an abyss of eternal destruction. Did he think it was just a child playing house? Is it possible to win a big victory just by using lip service? Ignore him, Wrong Yu obviously had no interest in this person, so he picked Nan 11 up and walked to the bed in the inner hall. It's late, go to bed. Put me down, Nan 11 frowned, don't hug me again until my injuries heal. Wrong Yu didn't listen to her and walked to the edge of the bed and put her on the bed. He took off his robe and then took off his shoes and went to bed. Although I have never been injured like this before, it is not unusual for me to be injured. Don't be too nervous, 11er kissing her cheek, he smiled easily. On the battlefield, injuries are commonplace when fighting with swords. If you are a general, how can you lead troops to fight if you are so delicate? Nan 11 looked at him expressionlessly. So, having you stay in the palace to recuperate for the past 2 days has actually wronged you. What are you talking about, Your Majesty? Wrong Yu stretched out his hand to hold her in his arms. His voice was low and sweet, with a lot of affection. Even if I am not injured, I am willing to stay here. As long as 11er is by my side, even if I am sleepy, I will never feel aggrieved until I grow old. Nan 11 was so coaxed by him that she lost her power in an instant, and said coquettishly, the love words are getting better and better. Wrong Yu smiled and held her in his arms. There will be a banquet at Guanyang Palace tomorrow night to entertain the envoys from South Vietnam and northern Xinjiang. Tomorrow night. Wrong Yu hummed, I've already given the order. The etiquette department just needs to prepare it. It doesn't need to be too grand. Nan 11 frowned, can your body bear it? 11er Wrong Yu laughed, don't think of me as weak. Nan 11 then stopped talking. 11er, be good. Wrong Yu kissed the corner of her lips. In addition to entertaining the envoys, it was also to allow the dongling courtiers to take their thoughts into consideration. It is already the 16th day of the 12th lunar month, and New Year's Eve is approaching. There are already a few days of court meetings before the new year, so I will simply take a holiday early and start going to court after the 6th day of the Lunar New Year. My husband's injury will be better by then, and there will be no further delays. Nan 11 glanced at him, remained silent for a moment, and nodded gently, you can decide later. Wrong Yu hugged her tighter, sleep. The moonlight is bright tonight. The clear and calm moonlight came through the window, casting a silvery glow all over the place, illuminating the palace softly. When love reaches a deep level, even if you do nothing and just embrace each other quietly, you can still feel the satisfaction and fulfillment from the depths of your soul. Nan 11 leaned in Wrong Yu's arms, feeling at ease in her heart. At this time, Xiejin and Xian Yuanyao had just come out of Prince Jing's mansion, and the bright moon illuminated the sky and the earth as brightly as day. The Su brothers have been gone for a long time. Chu Nanyi still held the folding fan in her hand and said in a graceful manner, it's getting late, I want to go back to bed. Should you two meet up to visit the brothel, or go home separately? Meeting at a brothel? Xian Yuanyao frowned subconsciously, I am a pure and self-respecting prince. I don't like to set foot in a brothel. Chu Nanyi raised an eyebrow, I didn't expect that Prince Yao is such a gentleman. You're flattering. Xian Yuanyao was not happy. If Mr. Xieju is interested, you can go find your confidant to chat, drink tea, and listen to some songs. Speaking of this, Xian Yuanyao's tone slightly changed, and there was a hint of meaning in his voice. When love is strong, it's wonderful to have a mandarin duck play in the water and enjoy the pleasure of love and water. Xiejin raised his eyebrows slightly, Yao Yao has never been to a brothel, how can you know the taste of that wonderful? You haven't eaten pork, but haven't you heard people talk about the taste of pork? Xian Yuan Yao said, when I was in Huainan before, there were several generals around me who liked to visit brothels. After visiting, they would always praise the girls in the brothels for their tenderness. Forget it, why am I telling you all this? Waving his hand, he said, this prince is tired and wants to go back to the mansion to sleep. You can do as you please. After saying this, he really turned around and left, without any intention of staying. Xiejin stared at his back indifferently. The young man was slender and well-proportioned, thin and upright, with a distinguished aura formed by years of military training. However, Xiejin inadvertently discovered that this baby had a thin waist and did not look like a big and strong general. Author's words. About the plot. I have a problem that I want to change but cannot change, that is, the timeline always goes by very slowly. Obviously, many things have happened in the plot, but in fact, not much time has passed, and the characters in the book have not known each other for a long time, so many things have to develop naturally, and you can't be too anxious, take your time. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 419. Nan 11 and Rong Yu stayed in the palace to recuperate and remain in love. Xian Yuan Qi and Chu Hongii are newly married, and the whole family is happy and happy. Xian Yuan Yao went to the military camp and led the regent to hand over the military power of the Suanjia army to Ling Fan and formulate the training process after the integration of the two armies. All the civil and military ministers in the dynasty were busy with the new emperor performing well when he first came to the throne, busy guessing the holy will, and busy communicating with the important ministers in the dynasty. The ninth master of the Xie family is still walking around the brothel in a dashing way. His noble and handsome face has attracted the admiration of many women. He tries to please him just for a night of love. Even the shadow girl who is in charge of intelligence under him does not hesitate to put down his figure and willingly offers his pure body. Just to win Master Ju's favor for one night. It's a pity that Master Ju is a picky master. He only goes in and out of brothels to drink and listen to music. He can flirt with the girls, and he can easily say a few sweet words of love with his little hands. But if he really wants to be in love at any time, well, Master Ju is still quite capable. Those who have principles will never touch women in brothels. Not even Hina. He has misophobia. The day after Prince Chi's wedding, he led his new daughter-in-law to visit her parents, served tea and said hello, and then went into the palace to pay homage to Her Majesty the Queen and the Prince Regent to thank her for yesterday's reward. The busy but joyful few days passed like this, and everything returned to calm. Seeing the unconcealed expressions of happiness on the faces of Qi Shizi and Chu Hongii, Nan 11 was sincerely happy for them, and teased, I stayed at home to raise my baby with peace of mind a few years ago. I don't have to go to the palace often. I should give it to you. The position you reserved will always be reserved, and you won't make it easier for others. Hearing this, Prince Qi spoke humbly and smiled, I have taken the trouble to teach a female general, and this is my idea. Thank you for your grace, I will be supported by my daughter-in-law for the rest of my life. When Chu Hongii heard what he said, she said calmly, I am the master and you are the master. After the child is born, you will be responsible for staying at home and taking care of the child. I, the general, will support you and your son. At the end, he added a domineering sentence, you are not allowed to go out to attract bees and butterflies, otherwise your legs will be broken. Prince Qi smiled particularly happily, as you command, madam. Nan 11 couldn't help but laugh. The happiness of lovers in the world is generally similar. They are nothing more than being in love with each other, tolerating each other, doting on each other, receiving love and joy, and not hesitating to give love and sacrifice. Xian Yuanqi and Chu Hongii did not stay in the palace for too long and quickly left. When they walked out of the palace, the couple happened to meet Duan Muyu and Sidu Suanju, who were about to leave the palace. It was like enemies who were extremely jealous when they met, and Sidu Suanju's expression instantly turned cold. It was a lifelong shame for him to be defeated by a weak-looking embroidered pillow, and he really couldn't swallow this breath. Prince Duan Muyu, Prime Minister Su Xian Yuanqi was thoughtful and personable. "You two are leaving the palace early in the morning." Duan Muyu's expression was not very good and he just nodded lightly. Su Chang smiled lightly. "Yes, I plan to leave the palace for a walk. Let's go together." Su Shang nodded and motioned for Xian Yuanqi and his wife to go first, with a gentle voice. "Congratulations to Crown Prince Ji and General Chu on their wedding. It's really a pity that I didn't go get a wedding drink yesterday." Xian Yuanqi glanced at Duan Muyu with a gloomy expression, intentionally or unintentionally, and asked curiously, "Prince Duan Muyu is in a bad mood?" Duan Muyu looked at him expressionlessly. "Nothing." He didn't want to say it, and Xian Yuanqi would not ask further questions. He chatted with Su Shang, and walked out of the palace while chatting. Prince Ji, who was immersed in joy for the past 2 days, paid little attention to the envoy's affairs. After the competition that day, he was busy with the wedding ceremony. He did not know that the patience of Duan Muyu and Su Chang had been worn out in just a few days. Duan Muyu and Su Chang originally came with a half-marriage and half-test attitude. However, for several days after they ascended the throne, Queen Dongling and the regent simply avoided meeting each other. They were indifferent to the beautiful young man they presented and asked Sidu Suanju. He ignored the challenge. The person Sidu Suanju wanted to challenge was Rong Yu, and Rong Yu's avoidance certainly made him feel bad. Even the complaints against the envoys of the two countries about their hospitality were innocuous and really made people angry. If Chief Xia and Prime Minister Lu hadn't stopped them, they would have packed their bags and left Dongling in anger. Of course, this is not the most annoying thing. The weather was cold in winter, and Duan Muyu's residence didn't even have a heater. It was so cold that he couldn't sleep well at night, but the fire in Su Shang's palace was burning brightly, which made Duan Muyu feel that he was treated unfairly. After I couldn't help but ask, I got an answer that sounded reasonable but infuriating. Master Su looks weak, so he should not be able to withstand the cold air at night. Prince Duan Muyu and General Sidu are both martial arts practitioners. They are not afraid of cold and heat, so they should not be able to withstand the cold a heater is needed. After saying that, the palace official couldn't help but add, the Prince Regent has never used a heater. Duan Muyu originally wanted someone to put a heater in, but when he heard the last sentence, his face turned green and he swallowed the words hard. The regent is a martial arts practitioner and does not need a heater. However, Sidu Suanju is also a martial arts practitioner and even dares to challenge the regent. Is it possible that he has to take the initiative to add a heater? If you add a heater, doesn't it mean you are admitting that your skills are inferior to others? But Sidu Xian definitely didn't need a stove, and that didn't mean Duan Muyu didn't need it either. Out of the responsibility of protecting the prince, Duan Muyu and Sidu Suanju lived in the same palace. So General Sidu didn't need a heater, which meant that Prince Duan Muyu didn't need it either. The winter climate in the northern border is extremely cold. November to December are the coldest and most difficult 2 months of the year. Every household of the royal family and dignitaries has a lot of charcoal fire in their mansions, and they rarely go out in winter. Although the winter in Dongling is not as cold as that in the northern border, Duan Muyu has become accustomed to the winter with a stove. The night without a stove is so cold that people just want to shiver. After just a few days, he couldn't stand it anymore. So much so that on the 16th day of the 12th lunar month, which was yesterday at noon, Duan Muyu wanted to say goodbye again, but heard the palace servant say, the regent has ordered that a banquet will be held in Guangyang Palace tonight to entertain guests. The Minister of Rites said that he neglected Prince Duanmu and Master Su in the past 2 days, and he was really uneasy. Of course, he will apologize to the 2 guests in the evening. When Duanmu heard this, he was immediately furious and almost wanted to drag the palace servant out and beat him to death on the spot. This is also the reason why he and Su Shang did not go to Prince Jing's mansion to drink wedding wine last night. I was in such a bad mood, how could I have the mood to drink? I felt uneasy. Duanmu sneered coldly. If I told a ghost this, would he believe it? The ministers of Dongling were just like their masters. They were not good people. Seeing that he was freezing and couldn't sleep at night, they didn't even arrange a stove for him. How dare they apologize? It was so hypocritical. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 420. Xian Yuanqi certainly didn't know that the Prince of Northern Frontier, who was known for his bravery, would be gloomy and angry because there was no heater at night, and he didn't know that the reason why this distinguished guest didn't have a heater in the palace was actually because Nan 11 had specially ordered it. The Prince and General of Northern Frontier were born in Northern Frontier. They were brave by nature and were not afraid of severe cold or heat. If a heater was specially prepared for them, wouldn't it be like treating them as delicate girls? What if they felt looked down upon and were unhappy? So it was right not to have a heater. The regent will hold a banquet at Guanyang Palace tonight, Su Chang said in a light tone. Prince Ji will come too. A banquet at Guanyang Palace? Xian Yuanqi was slightly surprised. The regent's injury should not have healed so quickly. Was he going to entertain the envoy with an injury? He had just gotten married and could have not attended. But now the queen is pregnant, Hong Ai is also pregnant, and the regent is still seriously injured. The regent is holding a palace banquet, so this prince will naturally come. Xian Yuanqi smiled lightly, otherwise, wouldn't it be disrespectful to His Majesty? Su Chang did not say anything, and after a moment of silence, he smiled gently. I have a question, I want to ask Prince Ji and General Chu. Chu Hongai's eyebrows were indifferent, and she did not speak. Xian Yuanqi said, what does Prime Minister Su want to ask? About Juxiao Pavilion. Su Chang paused slightly, looked up at Xian Yuanqi. Is Her Majesty really the daughter of Juxiao Pavilion? As soon as these words came out, Duanmu and Sidu Suanju, who were walking beside them, also stopped, their expression slightly condensed, and looked at Xian Yuanqi and Chu Hongai without any expression. Juxiao Pavilion does not belong to the court. The power that is detached from the world is even incompatible with the court. According to common sense, the royal family and the powerful have nothing to do with Juxiao Pavilion. The legendary Juxiao Pavilion is not willing to have anything to do with the court. But if Nan 11 is the daughter of Juxiao Pavilion, then she. Prime Minister Su is really cute. Xian Yuanqi smiled slightly, and his beautiful eyebrows looked gentle and harmless. Don't say that I don't know this question myself. Even if I really know, do you think I will tell you easily? Whether His Majesty has any relationship with Juxiao Pavilion, and what kind of relationship, should be considered a court secret. Have you ever seen anyone tell others the court secrets easily? Aren't you afraid of being accused of treason? Su Chang's expression froze undetectably, and then apologized. I am abrupt. Abrupt. Xian Yuanqi smiled faintly. It doesn't matter if it's abrupt or not. Only he knows what he is thinking about this inquiry. The Northern Frontier Crown Prince and the Southern Prime Minister had traveled thousands of miles to the Great Zhou before, but failed to accomplish what they wanted to do. This time, they went through a lot of trouble to come to Dongling. Most of their time in just a few months was wasted on the road. What is the purpose of doing this again and again? Do you really think they don't know? In the final analysis, isn't it because they are ambitious, but they are concerned about wrong use strong strength, so they dare not act rashly, so they want to take shortcuts? Unfortunately, the regent is not only powerful, but also jealous and possessive. Her Majesty's harem is destined to be vacant. Anyone who wants to go in must be prepared to die without a complete corpse. Suchang knew that this shortcut would not work, but he came to inquire about Juxiao Pavilion. Does he really think that he is the only smart person in the world and everyone else is stupid? If Prime Minister Su and Prince Duanmu want to go to the market, I won't bother them. We have other things to do today. Xianyu and Qi nodded. Go ahead, you guys are free to do what you want. Suchang nodded. Prince Qi, please do as you please. Xianyu and Qi took Chu Hongai's hand and walked away calmly. Duanmu stood outside the palace gate, watching the couple's backs getting farther and farther away, with a dark hue on his brows. Prime Minister Su, which country do you think is stronger, Dezhou or Dongling? Which country is the strongest when Regent Rongyu is in it? Suchang said in a light tone, and seemed a little regretful after saying it. I think our plan will fail. At least within 10 years, it will probably be difficult to shake Dezhou and Dongling. Within 10 years? Duanmu's expression darkened. What if Rongyu doesn't return to Dezhou? I suspect that it's not the Empress who has a relationship with Juxiao Pavilion, but Regent Rongyu. Suchang looked calm. If my guess is true, do you think that even if he is not in Dezhou, Beijiang has the strength to capture Dezhou Pass? Duanmu pursed his lips and said nothing. Juxiao Pavilion's influence spreads all over the world. What people are most concerned about is its overwhelming wealth and ubiquitous master spies. Its intelligence network is distributed in almost all countries in the world, and it is very likely that it has even infiltrated the powerful families of the court. If Juxiao Pavilion really belongs to Rongyu, then his strength is undoubtedly too terrifying. Who dares to touch his etch? What if he is not? Duanmu frowned. Aren't we scaring ourselves? If we give up a great opportunity because of too much concern, will we regret it in the future? Suchang said, unless you can find evidence to prove that Juxiao Pavilion has nothing to do with Rongyu, you can't take this risk. Duanmu was silent for a moment, then turned to look at Sidu Suanju. What do you think? There are many masters in Dongling, and I can't find a chance to kill Rongyu. Sidu Suanju's voice was cold and a little unwilling. If this man doesn't die, the great cause of the northern frontier will be difficult to achieve. Duanmu and Suchang were silent after hearing this. There are indeed many masters in Dongling, including Chu Hongai, Xianyuan Yao, Xianyuan Qi, and the eldest son of the Xie family who looks cynical but takes all the beautiful boys they sent to his backyard. Duanmu had seen Chu Hongai's skills in the Great Zhou dynasty. It must be said that although the opponent is not very old, his moves are a real military style. Xianyuan Qi seems weak, but he is unfathomable. Xianyuan Yao is both a military commander. Although they have not fought against each other yet, as the only legitimate son of King Huainan, he cannot be a fool. Of course, these are not the point. The point is that these masters are all Rongyu's people. Not only did Rongyu, the regent of the Great Zhou dynasty, dominate the entire Zhou dynasty, but he also had even greater power in Dongling. This was really not what they expected. So the current situation is indeed a dilemma. Suchang frowned slightly. Although those who want to do big things should not be timid and dare to take risks to achieve success, but not all risks in this world can be taken. One mistake may lead to catastrophe. Duanmu's face was as dark as water. So, our plan must be abandoned. The plan is always there, Suchang said calmly, but the premise must be certain, otherwise it can only be shelved temporarily. Sidu Suanju said coldly, I don't believe it. No one in the world can kill Rongyu. Hearing this, Duanmu's eyebrows moved and he couldn't help but look at Suchang. Is there any sect in the world that is best at assassination? The world is big and there are many talented people and strangers, Suchang said in a calm voice. If you really want to do something, you will always find a way. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbspeed -01, container, Taboola below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix.